Waiting for more light, please. Okay. Now I can see your faces and your eyes. Going to open up with the Lord's Prayer in the ancient Aramaic tongue. Shall we pray? Howlan lach masunkan en yaumana washwoklan how bain a canadap hanan shwakin la hayawain la tatlanisiona ella passen min bisha mithol the lachi malkutha haila tishpochta la alam almin. Amen. My talk this morning is on achieving healthy mental and emotional states of being. And people have often asked me, how come the Bible doesn't talk about the different mental illnesses and things that people have today? And I say, it's there, it's just that they use a different language. So what I would like to do this morning is unveil some of that language in the Gospels, and also the secret that Jesus had. We call it a secret. It wasn't a secret. He taught his disciples what it was, that they had to be able to help people achieve healthy mental and emotional states of being or mind, whatever you want to call it. There were certain things he knew, and we can do the same for ourselves and for others. And that's what I'd like to work with this morning. Now, the scriptures I'm going to read are a little odd because of the words that are used, but I'm going to explain it to you in a minute. The first one I'd like to read is in Mark, the 5th chapter. The Gospel of Mark, the 5th chapter. And they reached the port, beginning at the first verse, on the other side of the sea, in the country of the Gadarenes. And as they went out of the boat, he was met by a man from a cemetery who had an unclean spirit. Now, the Bible uses terminology because they did not have our technical medical terms for different emotional and mental states. This is, we're talking about over about 2,000 years ago. They used certain expressions to describe it. And the word here that's used, unclean spirit, the word spirit is rucha. And unclean here in this passage is tamptha, T-A-N-P-T-H-A. I'll spell it again, T-A-N-P-T-H-A, tamptha. And the trouble is, when we think of spirit, we think of, and I'm going to get the word evil spirit, what an evil spirit is too. The word spirit is used in many different ways in Aramaic. Spirit can mean the wind. I said there's a lot of spirit outside today, means it's very windy. This is how they say it in the scriptures. A spirit can mean your demeanor, your, your temper. It can also mean your temper. This is the trouble with ancient languages. When you bring it into another language and you bring it literally in, people don't get it. What it means here is this man was slightly deranged. The word unclean means not clear, not pure. He was going different directions. And he was in the cemetery, because in those days they didn't have hospitals to put people in, and they went to cemeteries. That's where they put them, in cemeteries. And he lived in the cemetery, and no man could bind him in chains. He was so angry at times that they could not keep him bound in chains. Because whenever he was bound with fetters and chains, he broke the chains, cut the fetters, and no man could control him. He had tremendous strength when he had this problem. And always, night and day, he was in the cemetery and in the mountains, crying aloud, cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshiped him. Means he bowed before him as a holy man, not worshiped him as God, but bowed before him as a holy man. So you could see the very fact he would recognize that means he was not that ill. You got it? Okay. And he cried with a loud voice, saying, "What have we in common, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God not to torment me." Because in those days, I'm going to tell you something and people don't realize it, they used to torment mentally ill people and make fun of them. And sometimes they would allow them to come to a banquet. I'm talking about in the ancient Near East, because they would do odd, crazy things and everyone would laugh. They would torment them. And then sometimes for healing, they would also try to torture them to get them to behave. And I like what Jesus said. For he said to him, "Get out of the man, you unclean spirit." Now it sounds like Jesus is talking to some sort of being that had taken possession of the man. It's because of language that we don't understand it. Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" Come out of him. What he was saying is, be calm. When he used this term, the man knew that he wasn't going to be tortured, that nothing bad was going to happen. So he sat him down. Doesn't say that, but he's talking to him. He says, "What is your name?" And he said to him, our name is Legion." The word legion there is a Roman term meaning a horde or many, many people or things. When we use the word legion here, anciently it meant an army. But here it means a horde, many things. It can mean many things, many people. He said, "A legion, our name is Legion, because we are many." What he's saying here, I am full of conflicting, not just personalities, thoughts. Don't use the word personality. There's only one personality. It's thought. It's many different thoughts. And that happens to us too, doesn't it? When all of a sudden our minds get invaded with different thoughts. In the Bible, that would be called an unclean spirit. But it's meaning confusion, conflict. This is why he cut himself, because there was hatred in him towards himself. And because we are many. And he begged him eagerly they would not send him out of the country. In other words, Jesus healed him, but he had to talk to him. That's what I want to talk to you about. What was Jesus? How could he approach the man like that and not be fazed by him? There's one other I'm going to read to you to show you the contrast, and then I'm going to come down there. I just want to give you the background. Okay, that's what I'm doing, is laying the background here. The first chapter of Mark, and Jesus is in a synagogue. And there was a man there in the synagogue. It doesn't tell us where. It just says in the 23rd verse. And there was in their synagogue a man who had in him an unclean spirit. Again, now this word here is tamtha. Tamtha. Which means a foul mouth. He had a foul mouth. That's what it means here. Tamtha, unclean spirit. See, it's different from that other word, tamtha. This is tamtha. And he said, listen to what he says. And he cried out, saying, Jesus of Nazareth, what have we in common? In other words, he's talking for all the people in the synagogue. And he's telling him, what do we have? You know, your teachings are odd, is what he's saying. He's criticizing Jesus, is what he's doing. He's criticizing him. And he says, what have we in common? You know, you're here in the synagogue, etc., but you're not like one of us. Have you come to destroy us? To destroy our faith? That's what it means here. To destroy us doesn't mean, he's talking about all the people in the synagogue. As I told you, he had a foul mouth. That's unclean, means foul, not clean. And he says, what are you doing here? Coming to destroy us here? To do away with our religion? I know who you are, Holy One of God. This is sarcastic. If you're just reading it, you don't get it. It's sarcasm. You're the Holy One of God. I told you he had an unclean mouth. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, it says here, be silent. But literally it says, shut your mouth. The translation was trying to be nice. But Jesus, if you could reading it in the Aramaic, it says, shut your mouth. Can you imagine Jesus saying that? That's how you have to talk to some people when they get wild. Right? And don't you have to tell yourself that too? When all of a sudden your thoughts get wild? Shut your mouth. Shut your thoughts. You've got to shut them. This is the word that Jesus had. But let me tell you, he says, be silent or shut your mouth. Come out of him, your thinking. And the unclean spirit threw him down, which means he convulsed. Because the words that Jesus spoke to him were too much, and he convulsed. I've had that happen to me. Not personally, but when I was working with someone, and I tried to calm them down, and they went into a convulsion. Out in a loud voice and left him. And they were all astonished and kept asking one another, saying, what does this mean? That's what we're going to get to. What does this mean? And what is this new teaching that with such a power he commands even unclean spirits and they obey him? What is this new teaching? And I think I'm going to give you one more. And this hasn't to do with Jesus. This is in the Old Testament. And it's the story of Saul. And it's the 16th chapter And there's an odd verse there because I want to clear this one. And the 16th chapter and the 14th verse, just put it down. Don't look it up. I'll read it to you. You can trust I'm reading correctly. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul. Actually, it says, now the Spirit of God departed from Saul. Didn't use the word Lord. It says Alacha, God, departed from Saul. And an evil spirit. Now we got something different here. An evil spirit from the Lord came from the Lord, troubled him. Pardon me, I read the verse above it. Troubled him. From the Lord. Odd. Then the last verse, the 23rd verse. And whenever the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, David took a harp and played it. So Saul was refreshed. Was refreshed and was well. 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, 16th chapter. This is the last verse, 23rd verse. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. Okay, you ready? I'm going to put this here. Thank you. We're dealing with the word spirit. I know people think spirit jumps in and out of people, but they don't. It has to do with the states, the mental and emotional states in consciousness. Okay. And Jesus knew certain things. If you notice, he was not afraid to approach these people. Not at all. He was always calm and approached them. And when he needed to rebuke, he rebuked. And the problem with the scriptures is it doesn't tell you the whole story. When he sat down and asked the man's name and asked him, "What is your name?" What he was saying, what is going on in you? What is going on in you? And because he didn't give him his name, did he? No. He just said, "Our name is Legion." What Jesus had to do, which is not written because it's understood. You see, the Gospels weren't written to us. They were written to the Near Eastern people. They can read between the lines. We have a difficult time with it because we're Western people and we take things too literally when we read the scripture. We picture something else, like you see the evangelists doing, slapping their hands on the heads of people. "Come out of him! Come out of him!" And people shiver and carry on like, "Oh, yeah, come out, come out." Then they leave, and they feel good, and they leave, and they start in all over again. I know. I used to attend those evangelistic meetings. I know what went on. That's not what Jesus did. We think Jesus stood there and said, and he didn't slap his hand on his head, "Come out of him." No. What he did was dismantle and deconstruct the thinking. You got it? That's what he said. So he had to go through, which in scripture says he had to go through the many thoughts and ideas that were possessing that man. We don't ever get his name. But he was mentally deranged, but he had been deranged by the thoughts because the conflicting thoughts were constantly going through him. He had to deconstruct. And I'm going to talk to us, too, about how we can deconstruct, okay? because you have to know a certain thing. Jesus could approach these people with understanding and love because he knew who they really were. In other words, these flare-ups, like the man in the synagogue, in other words, his unclean spirit meant he was hot-tempered. You ever meet people that are hot-tempered where they blow like that over nothing? Over nothing? You ever see people just explode? That is a mental state of a thought or an idea. You know, it starts when you're young. If you say certain words to people, right? You know how young people are. Not all. I'm speaking in general terms. You realize that. When you say a certain word, a certain thing, and it makes a person flare. You know, sometimes even between husband and wife, they know each other. Oh, you all look so innocent out there. And you know what will get their goat. There's an expression for you. Especially when you're in conflict. So you will say things to aggravate them. Right? Are you living? You provoke the devil in them. Come on now. The word devil in Aramaic is dewana. Dewana. And dewana means when you begin to act crazy. Now you know what I'm talking about. There are no spirits that jump in and out of us. And let me tell you, God's spirit didn't depart from Saul. It says so in the scripture. What it meant is Saul's demeanor had changed. He got filled with jealousy and he was afraid he was going to lose his kingdom and his dynasty because Samuel had left him and now he was scared. And his state of mind was, what will I do about my dynasty? What will I do about my kingdom? Because he knew Samuel anointed someone else and he had the idea it was David. But this is beforehand. The stories are a little mixed up in the scriptures there in the Old Testament. If you were teaching under me, I would explain all that to you. But that's on Tuesday nights. But here, it's hard to do it all on a Sunday morning. But you see, what happened is music, this is what I want to get at. Music calms the mind. Music calms the mind. And David played the harp. The harp. So in other words, when the rage of jealousy, when his mind got filled with, how am I going to keep my dynasty? What is going to happen? Samuel has left me. I am alone. That's what it means. The Spirit of the Lord departed from him. It meant Samuel had left him. The prophet was no longer guiding him. He was all by himself now, and he knew something else was going on. He was full of suspicion. He was full of jealousy, and that's what it means. Ruha. See? Listen to that. The Spirit is here, right? Ruha bishta. That's how you say it. Ruha bishta. Ruha bishta means a bad demeanor, a sense of jealousy. It doesn't mean he became an evil person, an evil spirit jumped in him. It meant he was jealous. He was full of fear. And when you get full of fear, it changes your attitude and your being. Okay. And he kept it. He kept it clear up until the time he passed. Several times he tried to kill David. Not in the beginning, but later on, when he began to become suspicious that it was David who would win and to have a new dynasty over his. So, but again, it's the language. What I want to show you is the language. And during the time of Jesus, the term evil spirit meant mental and emotional problems. God didn't put spirits out in the world to jump in and out of us. You got that? Please get that clear. And I know people think that. No, there are none. It has to do with your own consciousness. You project it. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something outside of the Bible. Something I experienced. When I was pastoring in San Antonio, Texas, and I just began my Aramaic work, lecturing all over, speaking in all the different places all over Texas. And at that time, there was a Unity Church in Dallas, Texas. It's still there. And Dr. Donald Curtis was the minister there. And Donald Curtis used to be a movie actor. In fact, when I was a kid, I loved the Flash Gordon serials. Flash Gordon and Buster Crabbe. He was in those serials, especially the last one. And when I saw him, then I found out he was a minister. First he was religious science, then he went to Unity. And he was pastoring. And he knew that I was working with Rabbi Lamsa, Dr. Lamsa, who translated the Bible from Aramaic into English. And we worked together 10 years. And when Lamsa was no longer lecturing, he had me come up to Dallas to speak at the church. And I did a Sunday service, plus I would do 3 or 4 nights seminar. That's when we used to have more seminars like that, 3 or 4 nights. And people had heard it. We always had crowds. I couldn't contain all the people. And there was one person that came that afterwards, it was actually 3 people who came up to me, and they said, "You've got to help this woman." And they were holding her. One here, one there, and they were holding the woman in the middle. This is after I spoke. And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And she looked at me. She was exhausted. She could hardly move. And I said, "What's the problem?" She says, "I'm being visited by spirits at night." And I said, "And they are attacking me, and they drain me. The lights flicker on and off." Have I told you this before? Oh, in the class, probably. Okay. The lights flicker on and off in the house. And she said, "And I've gone to the priest to cast out and to cleanse the house and to cleanse me." She says, "It doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop it." And I don't want to tell you the details of it, but it's very detailed. What that particular thing was doing to her. That would come in and she'd be in the bed. So I'll leave the rest to your imagination, okay? And you're not wrong. This is true. This actually happened. So this is not in the Bible. This is in Dallas, Texas. And she even went to the doctor, and the doctors couldn't help her. The priest couldn't help her. She says, "I had the feeling you can. There's something about you." I said, "Well, I tell you what," because I didn't know the whole story yet. I said, "I will meet with you," and I was staying in a hotel, but I said, "I will meet with you in a home," because I wanted the people to be there. To be there. And I said, "You all stay in the kitchen. I'll be in the living room, and you just stay right there in the kitchen, and I'll work with her." And I sat her on the couch there, and I sat on the other couch on this side. And we began to talk. And as we talked, I could see all around her all around her like this. Not I'm talking about with these eyes, but I could see all around her these different faces, like a little, half a rainbow over her. And they were hollering at me, "Don't you touch us, don't you touch us." But don't you see, I knew what that was. Those were visualization of her thoughts. I'm telling you now what I understood, okay? And when they brought her to me that morning in that house with the people, she had to be carried because of the exhaustion during the night. She wasn't sleeping. She was just straight, and she was a beautiful woman, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous. She was in her 50s, but beautiful. She used to be a movie actress and also on the stage. And she was in this torment, this mental, emotional torment, and what was happening to her physically. And she says that sometimes the room would shake. And I looked at her, I said, okay. And I worked with her, began to talk with her, because I knew that the real being of who she was there. I had to reach that. Do you understand what I'm saying? I had to reach it. I had to deconstruct all of her other ideas. And when I did, she still was very nervous and very scared. And I said, when you pray, how do you pray? Something was revealed to me when I said that. I said, how do you pray? She says, well, I wait for the energy to come up from below and up. I said, who taught you that? Who taught you the energy comes up from below? I said, the energy doesn't come up from below. She said, well, I attended a seminar where this man who was running the seminar said, you bring up the forces from the lower extremities all the way up. I said, well, what you have done, you have excited that area of your being. I said, this is why the Jewish people forbid certain types of phenomenon like that. I said, it doesn't come up from below. It comes from above. It comes from above. Consciousness is not below us. Consciousness surrounds us. And it's here. I says, you bring it from here. I had to reverse it in her. I had to reverse it. And when I did reverse it in her, I said, we start from above, coming down, and we're cleansing it. And I says, as we come down, we're cleansing it. And she felt freedom and cleansing. She says, well, what if all that stuff happens in the house? I said, it will not happen anymore. We cleared the connection in your consciousness, is what I told her. I said, we cleared the connection in consciousness. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm telling you about when you get all upset and everything, you have to clear the connection in consciousness, in your mind, and you have to clear it. And you have to start. Where do we start? And I'll go on more without telling about her later, but I want to talk to you. Where do we start? How do we achieve this healthy, emotional, and mental states? How do we do it? You have to realize that no matter what you're experiencing, no matter what you're feeling, it's not the truth. That's number one. It's not the truth. It is a temporary reaction. And don't worry, you can't keep yourself happy all the time. You can't. You weren't made to be that way. We're like the ocean. We're to ebb and flow. Ebb and flow. And that's why when you ebb, you rest. Right? And then you flow. So the first thing you got to realize is anything that is happening to you, if you think it's bad, let me tell you, it's only temporary. Don't give your consciousness to it. Don't let it hook up in you. Got it? You have to realize who you are. Okay. Now, realizing who you are is very important. What you have to deconstruct is your silly idea that we call ego. Now, but our ego has a name. You know, my ego is Rocco Errico. Come on now. And what it does, it accumulates. It accumulates. And that, what is it accumulating? It is accumulating what you're hearing in the daytime, what someone says to you, and sometimes when someone says to you that it's not too good, it plays like a broken record. Right? And it goes, ta-da, 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 and you're going, because the ego accumulates all those negative things. And not just what people say to you, but when you listen to the news and you watch different people think, you think of your ego, and your ego is accumulating everything you hear. And we think, this is my personality. No, it's not your personality. It's what you've been accumulating. It's what you've been accumulating. Listen to what I'm saying here. Watch what you are accumulating. And the best way to do it is when you lose contact with ego, you lose the accumulation. As long as I'm Rocco Errico, and I know what I'm about, like fool I do. I think I do, but I really don't. Because the true being is pure consciousness, not an accumulation of thoughts and things that I've learned or I see on TV or read in the newspaper or hear on the radio or someone says to me and have you heard? Ooh. And especially today, especially in politics, I never heard so much junk in all my life as I'm hearing now in politics. And the more I listen to it, the worse I get. All right, because you start accumulating. Then I have to realize, no, I have to change that. Because I'm starting to accumulate. And that's putting my emotions and my thinking in the wrong position. So what do? Beat myself up? No. I realize it. I come to an awakening. And therefore, I can heal myself. I don't want any unclean spirit. I erase the connection in my mind to it. And lots of times now when I put on the TV and they start in what the politicians are doing now, I go right through it. I won't watch it. I won't watch it. I don't care who's right and who's wrong. I won't listen to it and I won't watch it. Because it's not the truth anyway. No politician is true. I don't care who they are, what they are, whether it's the president clear down to a little municipality. Okay? It makes no difference. You have to recognize, and until we do, because like I said, we cannot legislate love. Love comes from a pure consciousness that's one and its union with God and with truth and with understanding. And you cannot stop people from hating by legislation. Do you hear what I'm saying? I can say, yeah, I'll start this, I'll make this a hate crime. Big deal. Does it stop the hating? No, it doesn't. No, well, I'll punish you for it. I mean, that's how we do it. God doesn't work that way. God only sees one way. The purity, the goodness, and that's what Jesus saw. He didn't see unclean spirits. He didn't see this man with a foul temper and mouth. He just said, shut up. Come out of him. Come out of him. I love it. And that's what you have to say to yourself. Shut up. Because you know how your mind talks to you? You know, and boy, can it talk. It just carries on and tells you this. Well, you know you did, you know you thought, you know you do, you know. You have to talk to it like Jesus did. Rebuke it. Rebuke it. Rebuke that thought. Rebuke it. And when you rebuke it, you open yourself up to the purity then of the true consciousness and what you are. And you have deconstructed. Deconstructed. Rebuking the thought is a deconstruction. And the minute you do that, something else is constructed. Actually, it's not constructed as it was there all the time. It's just, it begins to flow now. And all of a sudden, you're free. You're relaxed. The unclean thought has left you. Remember, all emotional states are transmuted thoughts. I'm going to say it again. All emotional states are transmuted thoughts. We separate them, but they're not. What the emotion is the thought in action, in feeling. That's all it is. It's not two different things. It's just that the thought now has transmuted, has become feeling. It has become something that you feel, something more solid. But it's not different. It's still the thought. And it takes it on. Jesus was so powerful. His understanding of a human being as a child of God, as true, pure, what flowed through him was pure consciousness, was pure heat. It's like pure water. When I was a young person, we used to go way out into the woods and stuff like that, and there used to be those streams and wells when it's running water like that. And oh, that water tasted so good. This is years ago, before we started polluting everything. Now, I wouldn't touch a stream. But you see, consciousness is always streaming. Consciousness, it's like a flow. Just like a flow in a river, like this. Constantly moving, constantly moving. Consciousness is constantly moving. It is never, ever still. God is never, ever still. And your being, your consciousness, I'm talking about your consciousness now, I'm not talking about your physical being. Your consciousness is ever moving and flowing all the time. And it's pure. It's pure. And it's so drinkable. So drinkable. That's what you really get out of a person. Not just the words. Not just the words. When a person is speaking, what are you really hearing? Are you drinking? Are you drinking? Because what that person is, you can drink from them. You can drink from them. Because you sense that consciousness is there. That's, when I listen to Dr. Barbara, on Sunday mornings when I'm here on the first Sunday. I couldn't be here this one because I was up in Nashville in June lecturing. But what I love about it is when we talk later on, because later on we call and we talk, and she said, well, what did you think? I said, well, Barbara, what do you want me to say? I said, you're so drinkable. It's not just the words. Oh, yes, you can write it down. 1, 2, 3, just like I've given you certain things, right? And the meaning. But it's that energy and that power and that presence behind it that makes it so rich, wonderful. And it's the same thing with your being. When you clear it, when you clear your consciousness, what is it? What did Jesus say? delightful, or blissful are the pure in heart. Heart there means mind, means consciousness. Are the pure in mind. Clear. That word pure means clear, clean. And what happens? Blessed are, for they what? They what? They see something. What do they see? They see God. Exactly. What are you seeing? Don't you see when you're watching the TV and all that, they want you to see what they are presenting. But when your mind is clear, you don't see that. You see through it and you see God. You got it? You see through it. When you have a clear mind, and they can yak and tell you, this is happening, and even someone coming by and telling you, you don't know. No, you can just see God. And then you get them, if you can, to see God also. And when you see God, you're calm. When you see God, you're whole. When you see God, you're healthy. You're pure. You have an understanding, and your whole being relaxes because you are the answer to your own